Every empire tells lies to people, claiming that their money is safe, and every government says its promises will last forever, yet history proves every single time that they are lying. From Rome to France, from the Confederacy to modern Lebanon, people have woken up to find their savings worthless, their salaries meaningless, and their futures stolen by systems they thought were secure. Collapse is not rare. In fact, collapse is the rule. The real question is not whether financial systems fail, but how you protect yourself when they do. Acting as if something will last forever is the most dangerous financial mistake. We look at our bank accounts and national currencies and assume they are safe, but money relies on trust, and trust can collapse overnight. History is both ruthless and instructive. Every bankruptcy leaves behind lessons, patterns, and warnings about what truly protects wealth and what turns to dust. If you pay attention, the ones who survive disasters are not the ones who trusted the most. They are the ones who doubted first. Take the Byzantine Empire, for example. This empire survived 1,000 years after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, and at the heart of its economy was the gold solidus, a coin so reliable that merchants across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia accepted it without question. For centuries, it was the closest thing the medieval world had to a global reserve currency. Yet they did not seem to learn from Rome's disaster with the silver denarius, which emperors had debased until it lost almost all of its value. And centuries later, the Byzantines made the same mistake with gold. A cinematic, high-detail scene of the Byzantine Empire showing gold solidus coins being subtly debased, gold coins being shaved, thinned, and mixed with cheaper alloys. Merchants in the bustling Mediterranean market react with growing suspicion and concern, some quietly hiding real gold in land deeds. The environment shows a blend of wealth and tension, with stacks of coins, ledgers, and Mediterranean architecture in the background. Moody lighting emphasizes distrust, subtle shadows over coins, realistic textures, 8K, cinematic style, human expressions reflecting awareness and caution. Not every collapse comes from rulers tinkering with money. Sometimes it comes from shocks that strike out of nowhere. In the mid-14th century, Europe was hit by the Black Death, the most devastating pandemic in its history. Between 1347 and 1351, half of all Europeans died, cities emptied, villages disappeared, and trade routes collapsed. Yet, the economic story of the plague is more than just catastrophe. When half of the labor force vanishes, survivors can demand higher wages, and food and land that were once scarce become relatively abundant for the people. Families with liquidity, silver, goods, or even just the ability to work, suddenly gained huge advantages. Land that once cost a fortune could be purchased for a fraction, houses stood empty, fields were untilled, and the survivors found themselves in a buyer's market. This pattern also echoes in modern times. During the COVID pandemic, supply chains were disrupted, governments printed trillions to keep the economy alive, and inequality surged. Those with liquidity acquired assets while people living paycheck to paycheck fell behind. In the United States, housing prices soared, the stock market recovered quickly, yet millions of ordinary people struggled to pay rent. The pattern is clear. Pandemics redistribute wealth. Those who survived the Black Death leveraged scarcity to climb the social ladder, and those with liquidity during COVID acquired property, stocks, and businesses that others could no longer maintain. The lesson is not comforting, but it is true. Crises reward those with reserves and punish those without. While pandemics show how quickly shocks can destabilize economies, the banking collapse in Renaissance Florence teaches another vital lesson. Institutions that seem too big to fail can fall like dominoes. In the 1340s, Florence was Europe's financial capital, home to powerful banking families like the Bardi and Peruzzi, who had lent heavily to kings. When Edward III of England defaulted on his loans, the banks collapsed, depositors were ruined, trade froze, and Florence was thrown into turmoil. Ordinary citizens realized that too big to fail is a lie and that reputation offers no protection. This lesson repeats every century. Institutions exist to make profit, not to guarantee your survival. During the American Civil War, the North issued greenbacks, paper currency not backed by gold. At first it seemed bold and patriotic, but as more greenbacks flooded the economy, their purchasing power declined. In the South, the Confederacy printed graybacks in enormous quantities, and by 1865 money was not just weak, it was effectively dead. What mattered in this collapse was not paper promises, but tangible assets. Land, food, and gold retained real value. Similarly, during the French Revolution, assignats, printed continuously, became worthless quickly, and people turned to real goods like food, gold, or property. The 1997 Asian crisis showed the deadly trap of debt in someone else's currency. Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and South Korea all suffered currency collapses, and the people who suffered most were not global hedge funds, but ordinary citizens. Yet the pattern was familiar. Those holding foreign currency or assets survived better. History clearly shows that paper money collapses, debt chains nations and families, and survivors are never the ones who trust the system most, but those who recognize its fragility. In Lebanon, between 2019 and 2021, banks locked their doors, deposits froze, and the currency collapsed. The ones who survived best were those holding assets abroad, tangible property, or keeping cash outside the banking system. History consistently shows that survival comes not from blind trust, but from recognizing real value when illusions crumble. Collapse is both tragedy and opportunity. For the unprepared, it is ruin, but for the resilient, it is a chance to acquire wealth at a fraction of the cost. After the Black Death, peasants became landowners. After 2008, cash holders bought homes. Protection is not only defense, it's also positioning yourself to seize what others are forced to give up. Wealth is not just about what you own, but what you can do. Bakers who still provide bread, craftsmen who repair tools, farmers who feed a community, and merchants who move goods across borders. These are the people who don't just survive crises, they thrive in them. In every crisis, money loses meaning, but production never does. People still need to eat, build, trade, and live, and those who can meet these needs never stay poor for long. True protection is not blind faith in institutions, but having real assets, real skills, and understanding that illusions always collapse. Every crisis is a transfer of wealth, from the many who trusted to the few who prepared, from paper promises to tangible value, from passive savers to active builders. History shows this pattern repeatedly. The question is not whether everything will fall apart. It always will. The question is whether you will be one of the many left holding promises or one of the few, holding something real. History does not repeat itself, but if ignored, it will crush you nonetheless. If this gives you a new perspective, subscribe. History has the answers, and I'll show you where to look.